Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Welcome to True Crime to Go. What can I get for you?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. I really want to do some sports betting, but you know what? Cancel it. Cancel the whole basketball team, why don't you?
Pull up to the second window, and we'll see you next crime.
Welcome to True Crime to Go. I am John here with Jamie. How's sports life going, man?
I mean, it's going a lot better till you got all mad. It's not even basketball season yet. I know you're bitter about Tennessee's recent loss, but
actually, you know what? I'm fine with the moral victory. I mean, it was close. It was really a good game.
It was really close. In today's story, though, there are no moral victories. There's a big moral problem, though.
And you know what? It's a big problem. Like, big problem that happened, and I was completely unaware of it.
Yeah, I've heard the story often about SMU football being given the death penalty for cheating a long time ago. Kentucky got in big trouble in the early 90s, and that was basketball. But I had never heard of this one until maybe a year ago, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about a sports scandal that basically, well, literally stopped a program cold for almost a decade. And it all started with the 1984-1985 Tulane Green Wave men's basketball team. There were arrests made, there were indictments and revelations that a handful of players had taken money to influence the game's outcomes. And by the university's reaction that very day, they dropped the men's basketball program entirely. So let's kind of walk through slowly and see what happened. So start it back at the beginning, Jamie. 1984. It was a good year. Take me there.
84-85 season at Tulane finished as kind of a middle of the road year by record, but by late March of 85, the story had exploded off of the scoreboard. Go to March, middle of March Madness, 1985, when Tulane star John Hot Rod Williams.
It's a great nickname.
It really is. And two teammates, David Dominique and Bobby Thompson, were arrested on charges tied to sports bribery and conspiracy after an investigation into point shaving in several games. Two other players, Clyde Eads and John Johnson, later testified, and while they may have participated, they received immunity. What's point shaving?
Okay, so it's very interesting. So in sports like football, basketball, whatever, you can bet not only for who's going to win the game outright, but who's going to win and by what margin. So by point shaving, you're not necessarily throwing the game. You're not necessarily losing the game. But if you're predicted to beat a team by 10, but you know a whole lot of people bet for you to lose or to win by less than 10, you could not score as much to get those people some money. Is that an adequate description?
It is, yeah. So essentially doing less on purpose. This happened in the NBA this last year. A guy was suspended from the Raptors. So it is, I don't know, people thought of it as a creative way to make money. And, you know, they put it into place and paid these players to do it.
So what these indictments said was that prosecutors had said that money had been paid to players to affect the point spread in specific Metro Conference games. So reporting suggests that some of those games were against Southern Mississippi, Memphis State, Virginia Tech, and those are some of the ones that are under suspicion. Prosecutors also alleged that John Williams accepted payments tied to those games.
These amounts that appeared in reporting weren't huge by professional gambling standards, but were big enough to draw attention. Several accounts say that Williams accepted payments totaling about $8,550 in connection with this point shaving, which in the mid-'80s, college players weren't getting paid. That's a decent paycheck for missing a couple layups.
Well, I'll just say the story will continue. So remember what Jamie just said. So as the case unfolded, Tulane started their own investigation because they have to report incidents to the NCAA. So they found some stuff. University officials disclosed that their internal probe had found violations tied to the basketball program, and those included reports of cash payments to players by the coaching staff. So this complicated the legal picture and intensified campus pressure And those revelations helped shape the university's drastic decision that they made.
Now if the NCAA or a campus does any kind of investigation, it usually takes years.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But we're going, at this point, they were arrested at the end of March. And on April 4th, 1985, Tulane announced that it would accept the resignations of head coach Ned Fowler and 2 assistants, and in a move described at the time as unprecedented for any school, to disband the men's basketball program immediately. President Amon Kelly framed the decision as a demonstration of the university's intolerance for the violations and misconduct that was brought up during the investigation. The disbanding was widely reported as essentially a self-imposed death penalty for the program. Now, I used that term earlier to talk about SMU. Basically, that means you don't have a program for a certain number of years, which, okay, we don't get to play basketball. But for colleges, especially high-level basketball programs, especially in March, you're bringing in so much money to the school itself. Plus, if you don't have a program, then you're having to start completely over when you start back up. A big part of college athletics is constantly recruiting and having people come in and out. You're starting from scratch, which puts you so far behind the competition.
Could you imagine being a parent of a kid being recruited and you're like, hey, I'm just starting up our team. I know that you're also being recruited by teams that have had a basketball program for years. We're brand new, so no track record to go off of. Criminal proceedings would follow, and Williams was indicted on multiple counts: sports bribery, conspiracy among some of them, and several other people were charged in the broader gambling case, including students and alleged intermediaries. 2 Tulane students pleaded guilty in April of 1985 to charges connected to the scandal during surprise court appearances. I think a lot of how this came about was some of the guys, bookies, or, the folks in Vegas were like, man, there's a lot of kids from Tulane betting on these Tulane games. That's not a very common thing, I guess, back at the time.
Yeah, a lot of action going one way or another. Like you and I have talked about Vegas. I don't know if they're wizards or they rig everything, but they're so good at what they do. So if there's some odd activity, they're certainly going to notice it. But that wasn't the end of the controversy here. As it turned out, Williams' case was declared a mistrial, and later a judge completely dismissed the charges. This meant that Williams did not end up being convicted of sports bribery that had made national news and essentially ruined his name. Reporting from the time and later summaries note the mistrial and dropping of charges were just as big a news as the scandal itself was.
Yeah, and they would open the program back up to start the 1989 season. But like you said, I mean, this move really reshaped what recruiting looked like. It impacted alumni relations and just their whole athletic reputation for years. Obviously, it didn't impact them for my generation because I did not know about this or remember it. But I do know them as a somewhat mediocre team when they have to play Power 4 schools.
I remember them because their mascot doesn't have an E or doesn't have an S, and they're the green wave, and that always sticks with me for some reason. It's super
singular
weird.
wave.
Yeah, so it was compared to some other similar scandals that happened in the late 70s and early 80s, and like I said, most of the scandals in college athletics are about improper recruiting or paying players. Those are really what you're talking about, but this one actually getting the players to cheat and impact the games for money, I think, is a different shot at the integrity of the game. So I totally get why this is a scandal. It was big news in the NBA world last season. You may not have heard about it if you weren't in on the NBA. He also wasn't a big name player, but this was fascinating to me. I mean, we could write books on all of the scandals like this that happened, but they're always really fascinating to me how people think they're going to get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I can't imagine nowadays, too, the digital trail that would go along with this, but it still happens. I mean, players now have agents, and the agents have people. So, I mean, it's not impossible to move money around and make these kinds of bets, but I would hope that it doesn't happen anymore. It's a shame.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And it makes you wonder how many people didn't get caught.
Yeah.
Bet it's a lot. All right. This has been a crime story about scandals in basketball in 10 minutes or less.
Would you like crime with that?
You've listened to True Crimecast, distributed by Stoveleg Media. Check out stoveleg.com to find out more about your hosts and to find other podcasts to listen to. Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.